I don't know if any of you watching are fans of the TV program Jeopardy! My wife Jill really enjoys Jeopardy! And she watches it faithfully every evening that it's on. And I watch it almost as much. I'm usually washing the dishes, to be honest, and so I'm catching part of it. But you may have noticed that a little while ago there was a little controversy on Jeopardy! Because they asked a question about which letter of the Apostle Paul has the most Old Testament quotations. And one person said Romans, and another person said the letter to the Hebrews. And Hebrews was deemed the correct answer because of a preface that's written in the King James Version of the Bible. But most biblical scholars do not think that Paul wrote the letter of Hebrews. That's a little intro to I'm going to share with you today from the letter to the Hebrews. And Hebrews is the New Testament epistle that has the most references to the Hebrew Bible, to the Old Testament. And yesterday I encouraged you to read Psalm 8, and I shared from Psalm 8 about human dignity and how God is mindful of us and has given us the responsibility to care for all of God's creation. And in Hebrews chapter 2, in verses 10 through 18, we have a passage about the destiny of humankind that's described in Psalm 8 and how it's attained through the work of Christ. That Psalm 8 says how we are made a little lower than God. And in Hebrews chapter 2, it talks about both the humiliation of Christ, his humbling himself, and the exaltation of Christ. And I encourage you to read Hebrews chapter 2, verses 10 through 18. And it ends with these words in verse 18. Because he himself was tested by what he suffered, he is able to help those who are being tested. Now, you may wonder, why in the first week of the year am I talking about a passage where Jesus is tested and suffered, and we all are going to be tested as well? And it's because no matter what you're facing right now, and you may be in a situation where everything's going wonderfully well for you, some of you may be dealing with a situation where you have a physical problem that is driving you to tears and frustration and a sense of helplessness and wondering, are you ever going to feel better again? And part of what Hebrews is reminding us is that whenever we suffer, whether that suffering is physical, whether it's emotional, like grief at the loss of a loved one, or family trouble, whatever tests us, whatever suffering we endure, that is a time when we can relate to what Jesus himself also went through. And I pray that whatever you are suffering today, if you're going through a hard test, something that's scaring you, something that's difficult, I pray that you would sense God's presence with you, and that it would be a time when you are drawn closer and nearer to God. And I pray that God will deliver you through this time of suffering and testing very soon. In Jesus' name.